gone through the very basics. I'm going to try to rush through these other 5 examples I've got, just to show you the other features of our app, my front-end framework. So we've already gone through one-way binding, so I'm going to show you two-way. So let's go ahead and start our framework. And so the way we have two-way binding is we have our models that can bind data to our HTML documents. That's a one-way. Our two-way is we can make changes in our HTML by inputting values, and it's going to go back and reflect in our model. So here we have these captions that will change our model's caption, and it will also change the model's picture value. And then we have those being fed into this card layout right here. So if I change and modify this caption, you'll see that it's changing the caption on our card. And if I select a different image, you'll see it updates the image on our card. So if we go down to our HTML real quick and take a look, you will see that we have the same type of properties we had before, a model, and we told it which property to set. And now we have this new attribute called input, which takes 2 arguments saying, what is the model property we're looking at for a change, and then where we want to stick the input change, and where's that value for our input into that model coming from. And this is a property value of the HTML element. So we're going to our input field, we're taking its value, and we're going to stick that into our caption of our model. So that's how that works. As far as we get a different tag here, it's the attribute, which is pretty much the same thing as the /prop, where instead of setting a HTML element property, we're setting an HTML attribute on that. So let's go ahead and get to demo 3 so we can see some more things. And so here we're going to introduce another concept, and it's going to give us the ability to have callback functions that will be triggered based off of model changes. So I'm going to go ahead and just start this demo as well, and you'll see we've got a nice HTML form here. So common thing we need when we have a form is input validation. And so right now, as you see, once this started, we see that we have a little validation section that has validation messages telling us that our username is invalid and our password is invalid. And so as we type here, we're just going to take advantage of two-way model bindings, of course, to sync all of our data back and forth. So I'll type a username, so I'll type user 1, and you'll see we satisfied that 1 requirement. And now I'm going to go down here and type a password, so I'll type password. And you'll see we satisfied our other validation requirement, and now our submit button has also been enabled. So let's go ahead and look at our JavaScript real quick. And what we'll see is here's our inputs, and then down here we have, actually I'm on the file. So if we go here, you'll see we have 2 sections. We have sections where we have our input fields, and then we also have our validation message section. And so we'll see that here's an instance where we start using now 2 models. So for our input fields, we have a model called request, which will store the username and password, which will propagate those two-way bindings to that. And then we'll see we have also a new function up here called the spa function attribute. And what this is going to do is, again, going to say which model we're going to run on. And we're going to say we're going to run off the request model. And now we have a new symbol here. It's an asterisk, which is a wildcard, which can be used to replace any model name or property name of a model. So that base is going to say any change of a property on this request model, we want to then run in spa function. Second argument is the JavaScript function we want to run. And we need to make sure that this is a globally accessible JavaScript object, so that way we can call it. So we go down to our section down here, we see this validate form, and it's taking in an event. We're not using this event specifically in this function right now because we know one way this is being called is if we have a change in our request model. So we just validate that input, and then we go here in our validation model. We say we want to go set the property style to invalid, and then we want to set our validation messages on our message, and then we also want to disable or enable our button. So you can see we bound those 2 models down here. and you'll see this log right here function. And so if you scroll back up, we see here, we said any model change, any property change, log, and that's just going to log that event I was mentioning earlier. And through that event, you can see every time we have a update that happens and comes down to our HTML document, there's an event that gets generated. So right now, we're just logging those events as they come in. And as you can see, it has various amounts of data about the model that came to us, the names, and what was changed, and stuff like that. So that's pretty much it. Let's go to the fourth demo real quick, and this is where we start getting to the really useful stuff that our demo can do. So our framework, so I'm going to go ahead and start this. And we'll see when I ran start, we've got this little section right here that has a nice little div, and then we've got 3 card layouts. And this is really cool because when it came to this card layouts, we didn't have to make copy and paste this section of HTML over and over again. We're able to make one HTML component and then just call it 3 different times to generate this HTML element. And so templating gets really useful. So we have the ability to do that in this framework. So the way that works is we come up here and we're going to introduce a new element in a second. So I just have this span where the display is set to none, so that way it's just hidden by default. And this is where we write our templates. And the beauty of this is all our templates are written in HTML. There's no JavaScript or anything like that, and it's straight right here inside of our document. And so we just basically, with a template, we write all the HTML that would be generated anytime we want to have a reusable HTML section. And so we want, right here, we're creating the span, which is basically just a container to hold our template. And we use this new attribute called spa template, and we give it a name. And inside will be all the HTML that gets copied anytime we call this template. So it's just going to go ahead and set some styling information, and then it's going to go ahead and get that messages model, and it's going to insert our greeting into the inner text of this header right here. And so that is that section we see right here. And then down here we have another template for our card. And our card is going to say, we got another special operator here, and this is the dot operator, which means root. So anywhere where you can place a model name, we can put this dot, and it's going to represent the model that was passed to it, and that'll make a little bit more sense in a second where that's coming from. And then of course we're setting the picture and caption stuff. So I'm going to go down here. You're going to see get another new attribute called spa component. And so the way a component works is, again, we tell the model and we say the property we want to change on. And the second argument is the template we want to call for this component. And so we specify the greeting component here, the greeting template, and so that's what will be generated and stuck here. And then next we have this section for all of our cards. And so each card is going to be bound to the card model, which is going to get our information from. And then we're going to say any model change on that. We can specify, but we don't care right now. And then we're going to say when you use the card template. And here you'll see we do something a little bit different. Here we're going to add a third optional parameter that can specify what we're actually sending to that component when we go to that template. And this dot again is just saying we're going to send the data, we're sending the model that was given to us up to that. And that's how the components work. And we'll go to demo 5 real quick. And demo 5 is really the same thing as the last demo, but it's just showing us we can make more complex template setups. So right now we can have default content like we did before because we didn't have a model binded. So go ahead and start our framework. We'll see that we get some default sections already. And so right here, we've bounded a model. We can use those events we saw earlier, because when we have a DOM event, you can have either a bind, where we have new data being bound to an HTML element, a set where new data is coming into it, or we have something called an unbind, where we're removing data from it. So we've bound that data, and so now it says we have data bounds, and it's being loaded. And then once we could say, hey, let's now go ahead and have that data updated. And called different templates, so that's not really important, but that's the basics. And so the next video I'm going to show you some routing and then show you how I use it in my model application. But I'll go ahead and do a set real quick just to show you when to get data. So I'm going to read to that card caption, And then we're going to go ahead and tell the spa to stop.